Each and every year, there are tons of players who use the transfer portal to their advantage, and they go from a guy who's a backup to potentially getting drafted. Over the last 2 years at Florida State, we saw Trey Benson go from a backup running back at Oregon to then becoming a drafted player in 2024, and now a guy who plays for the Arizona Cardinals. One dude from Alabama was hoping to follow his same path. After being a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, Roydell Williams was seen as the next great Alabama running back, and after 4 years of being a backup in Tuscaloosa, he decided he was going to transfer to Florida State for one final season. So far in 2024, it has been a complete and utter disaster for Williams, as he's not even playing right now. He doesn't even have over 100 yards on the ground, and any sort of draft stock he had left, or potentially had, is now sort of going out the window. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Alabama player who, in my opinion, made a pretty big mistake, and that is Roydell Williams. We're going to go through how he became a big-time recruit to begin with, talk about his time at BAMA, and ultimately what the heck has happened to him while he's at Florida State. But before we get started, if you're a fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about what happened to Roydell Williams. So yeah, I hope you guys don't think I'm being too negative in this video, but I definitely feel bad for Roydell Williams, as no one thought his decision to go to Florida State would turn out this bad. Going back in time, Roydell grew up in the state of Alabama, and would eventually make his way to Hueytown High School, and would star pretty much immediately there. This was the same high school that Jameis Winston went to just a couple of years earlier, so a lot of people knew about this place. It's not too far away from Tuscaloosa, and he saw a lot of great backs in his time there. He said, quote, "Alabama is a dream school. I've always wanted to go there. I saw the running backs who went to Alabama, like Trent Richardson, Eddie Lacy, and Mark Ingram, and I feel like I can fit in with that family of football." During his sophomore year, Roydell started to blow up, as he became a second-team All-State selection during his sophomore year, and this included running for 1,509 yards and 24 touchdowns. During his junior year, he became a first-team All-State performer, rushing for 2,757 yards and 32 touchdowns, while also catching 216 yards and 3 touchdowns out of the backfield. In February of 2018, he started to blow up on the recruiting trail, landing offers from Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, and it looked like it was going to come down to Bama and Auburn to land his talents. Williams was not just a running back either, as he actually spent some time as a defensive end. Hueytown used him as a defensive end in their down and distant packages, and he said it was trying to help him become a complete player. He said, quote, "It's just about being a willing player, and you have to be an athlete all the way around." During his senior season at Hueytown, he ended up running for 1,289 yards and 24 touchdowns, while helping them reach the quarterfinals in the 6A state playoffs. He also added 22 catches for 333 yards and 2 scores, played Wildcat quarterback, and even lined up at defensive end, as I said earlier. But where would Roydell Williams go? Well, he decided to commit to play college football at Alabama. He ended up attending the Iron Bowl back in 2018, and not long after they beat Auburn 52-21, he said he envisioned himself playing in that rivalry game. Despite being a big-time player with huge offers, there was no recruiting drama. There was no hat dance, there was no drama, as he decided to walk in wearing a crimson golf shirt with an Alabama script A, and he wasted no time in signing with the Tide. He said, quote, "It's been my dream, and I had the opportunity to play at other SEC schools, but Alabama is in my heart." He said he hoped to take baby steps to earn playing time and continue Alabama's long list of running backs who use the Crimson Tide as a stepping stone to the NFL. His head coach Greg Patterson said, quote, "We've never coached someone with this type of talent. An SEC signee doesn't come by every year, and it's been a pleasure to have him in our fieldhouse. Even sometimes when you don't want to laugh, he'll make you laugh." Coach Saban eventually told reporters that he saw tons of quality traits in Williams during the recruiting process, saying that he was explosive, had good speed, was a good receiver, and had good power for his size. They always thought that Roydell would be a great asset to their offense and would be one of those change of pace backs, and many thought he was a lot like Mark Ingram, to be honest. In total at Hueytown, he rushed for 5,929 yards, 84 touchdowns, and led Hueytown to back-to-back regional titles for the first time since 2000. According to 24/7 Sports, Roydell Williams was a 4-star recruit, the number 10 running back, and the 116th best player in the class of 2020. So, how would Roydell end up doing at Bama? Well, let's take a look. Okay, so once Roydell arrived at Alabama, he was part of a 3-man running back class for the Crimson Tide in 2020, which included another very highly touted player by the name of Jace McClellan, who is a 4-star recruit and is currently a rookie in the NFL. His goal once getting to Alabama, well, he said, quote, "Possibly to break records, possibly to earn a starting position, possibly to get on the field my freshman year, and there's a lot of big things." So how would Williams do as a freshman? Well, in 2020, he would appear in 4 total games, running the ball for 71 yards and 1 touchdown, which came against Kentucky. He was obviously stuck in a logjam of running backs, with Najee Harris being the feature guy back in 2020. Going into 2021, though, he'd hopefully have a larger role. Brian Robinson would end up becoming the star for them, and he would end up becoming a rotational back for the Tide. His best game that season came in Week 3, as against Southern Miss, he ran for 110 yards and a touchdown. Then a couple of weeks later, he ran for 78 yards in a road victory over Mississippi State. From there, his best performance was a 29-yard game against Tennessee, and in total in 2021, he finished with 284 yards and a touchdown, and also caught a touchdown out of the backfield against Texas A&M. 2022, though, was when his role was supposed to expand, as now Brian Robinson and Najee Harris were gone. Ultimately, they would bring in Jahmyr Gibbs, so he was sort of third on the depth chart behind him and McClellan, and he would end up having an okay year. He ran for his first touchdown of the season against Louisiana Monroe, and then had a great game against LSU. While they ultimately lost by 1 point in overtime, Roydell Williams had 2 crucial touchdowns in that game, which almost helped them beat the Tigers on the road. From there, he'd have a touchdown in their Iron Bowl game against Auburn, which is kind of cool knowing how much he loved the Iron Bowl coming into high school, and then in the Sugar Bowl, he'd have a couple of carries. Okay, so far he had been a little bit underwhelming in his first 3 years, as in year 3, he had run the ball for 250 yards and 4 scores. Going into 2023, it would mainly be him and Jace McClellan though. In his 3rd game of the year, he'd have a career night. Against USF, he got starting level reps as he ended up running for 129 yards and a touchdown, and that was huge because that was actually Alabama's worst offensive performance of the season, but Roydell was the guy that year. From there, he'd go for 44 yards a couple weeks later against Mississippi State, had 68 yards in a win over Arkansas, and then had touchdowns against LSU, Chattanooga, and Auburn. He'd also then come up extremely important against Georgia, as in the SEC Championship game, he would score a crucial touchdown, and they would beat the number 1 Dogs and clinch a spot in the 2024 playoff. But sadly, it came at a cost, as he'd ultimately deal with an ankle injury and would miss that Rose Bowl game. They could have used him, as they ended up losing in overtime to Michigan. So in 2023, he had his best season yet, running the ball 111 times for 560 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he also caught a touchdown out of the backfield against Kentucky. This is where I think he made a crucial mistake. Yes, Alabama returned Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and Richard Young, plus a big 4-star freshman, but just like Brian Robinson did back in 2021, I think the mistake Roydell Williams made was not coming back and taking that opportunity. Honestly, I don't know what went on behind the scenes, as maybe he didn't get along with DeBoer as much, but after 4 years of starting and being in that system, there's no reason why Roydell should not have been the number 1 back going into 2024 and gotten that feature position. If that was the case, he'd be playing for a much better team right now, as the school he chose to go to is a dumpster fire. Where did he end up going? Well, he went to Florida State. 24/7 Sports ranked him at the time as the number 76 overall transfer and a top 10 running back, and in 4 years he ran for 1,100 yards with 11 touchdowns over 4 years, and he would bring that to Tallahassee. He ended up going to Florida State, and on paper it made sense. He said, quote, "Immediately, it felt like home once my name hit the portal, and I communicated with all the coaches, and we built a relationship throughout this time, and I felt like it was the right decision." When you look at his running style, many thought he was just like Trey Benson, who had just gone off to the NFL and was drafted by the Cardinals. Many thought they were pretty much like each other, and what's interesting is he was not guaranteed the starting role, as they had already brought back Lawrence Toafili, who had also been a backup for a couple years at Florida State, and he was supposed to be the feature guy. So far this year, Florida State is absolutely terrible, and Roydell Williams, in my opinion, made a mistake going there. In their first game against Georgia Tech, he ran the ball 12 times for 38 yards and a touchdown, and averaged an abysmal 3 yards per carry. The next week, he got 3 carries against Boston College, and then against Memphis, he had a very tough night. He ran the ball 5 times for 6 yards and a touchdown, but he had a fumble. Yes, that fumble ended up being very costly, and he had a 1 yard per carry average. In total in 2024, Roydell has run the ball 20 times for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 2.7 yards per carry. What makes matters worse is he's currently dealing with an injury, and we have no idea when he'll be back. Head coach Mike Norvell said, quote, "It's unfortunate for him, but it does open up an opportunity for some of the younger guys." Yeah, this one definitely stings. In my opinion, he was probably a top 2 back at BAMA, a team that'll likely go to the playoff, and he could have gone off to the NFL, and is instead now playing for a Florida State team that's one of the worst in program history, has lost all momentum, and now he's dealing with an injury. and doesn't have many good games to show for it. At this point, he needs a lot of work if he wants to become an NFL draft prospect, but at one point, Roydell Williams was next up at BAMA. I remember hearing hype about him for years, and he had some moments for the Crimson Tide, so this is really unfortunate to see. I hope I'm not dogging on him too much, as I really just wanted to highlight his story, but hopefully he bounces back towards the end of the season, gets over this injury, and makes his way to the league. Again, we'll have to wait and see. This story is sad, and I think this will go down as a mistake in retrospect. I think a lot of mistakes are going to happen in the transfer portal era. But what do you guys think? If you're a Bama or a Florida State fan, what has gone wrong for Roydell Williams, and who's another player who ended up falling apart after transferring this year? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.